You're listening to a Wales or Wales production. You're also listening to Wales. Visit walesorwales.com for more projects and shows like this one.
Greetings.
Howdy, welcome to Hearthaholics, a Hearthstone strategy podcast about sitting back, chatting with friends, and figuring out how to be more awesome at this game. This is episode 15. I am your host, Brian, and joining me today are three other people. Yes, you heard me right. I didn't forget how to count. There are actually three other people here. One of those is Andres. Hello, Andres. How are you doing?
Hey, Brian. I am doing great.
That is great to hear. Billy, are you doing great?
Yes, I am also doing great. We are collectively doing great.
Are you otherwise known as Brawly on Twitch?
I am also known as Brawly on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, so there you go.
Get the plugs in early, you know?
Yeah, just gotta...
And finally, we have a special guest with us today. We have John Horstmann from the Well Met podcast. Hey, John.
I feel like I have transcended dimensions, and I have logged into the wrong podcast Skype. But this is awesome. This is great.
It's actually, we're wondering why you're here. You know, we were like, why is he here? I think he's supposed to be somewhere else right now. No, really.
You were stuck in the Twilight zone of podcasts and ended up in the wrong one.
I take it.
Yeah, actually,
I'll take it though.
Right now, Kevin and JR are panicking, and they're like, "What do we do? We don't have a host. What do we do? I don't know."
We'll just take advantage of you while we have you over here.
But yeah, I've been wanting to have you on for a few weeks now, John, and we just now got things together to where you could come on. But why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and the Well Met cast?
Totally. So I'm John. I have not been podcasting for too long, so this is kind of really exciting for me. But we also do a Hearthstone podcast called Well Met. It's hosted by a pretty awesome community website called blizzpro.com. JR, one of the co-hosts, is actually the co-founder of it, does most of the work and coding for it. Super talented guy. Then we also do it with Kevin Hovdesad, who is
oh my gosh.
He's a really, I can't even know where to start. He does lead news over at Icy Veins, which is insane. He also does writing for like other websites and things like that. So he's a really talented guy. So we have really awesome co-hosts.
Yeah, the knowledge base there is huge. I was just thinking, I'm kind of glad we didn't have Kevin on the show just because I don't want to pronounce that last name. Oh my God.
I practiced it. I got the Mira. I wrote it like backwards so you could read it. And then I just said it over and over and over again.
Yeah, you're just in a dark room up until 4 a.m. just repeating it to yourself like a
I've
chant.
actually only said it once correctly. The rest of the time I have a button on my keyboard. I hit it and it just goes, Kevin Hovdesad.
Perfect. So it's like, Kevin Hovdesad. Yeah, that's great.
The Well
Very
Met
resourceful.
The Well Met podcast was a pleasant surprise to me because I've actually known of BlizzPro for some time now. I actually was on one of the early episodes of the Heroes Power Hour. I was actually meant to be a co-host for that, but it didn't end up panning out because they wanted me to fill a specific role that I didn't feel like I could fill. But I didn't even know that the podcast existed, the Hearthstone podcast, the Well Met podcast. I knew that the Hearthstone Power Hour existed. But then when I found out about Well Met, I was like, oh my, why am I not listening to this on a weekly basis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really crazy thing that happened. It used to be the Hearth Pro show with Mark, and they went through like 6 or 7 co-hosts.
Yeah, I remember. I used to listen to that podcast back in the day, but they closed it out, right? They stopped doing it.
Exactly. So at the time, they're like the number 2 podcast. They had great following, and then just for whatever reason, people couldn't keep it up with, real life things and inconsistency in hosts, and it just kind of slowly fell apart. And so BlizzPro put up an article. It's like, not John. They said, hey, we want people to, try out to be a new host for the podcast. And I set a goal in 2015, no joke. I'm like, I want to start a podcast this year about Hearthstone. And
you just saw the opportunity.
And instead I got
That's
this
amazing.
host, and we Mark gave us the RSS feed. So we got to keep all the previous subscribers and things like that from the Hearth Pro show. And so
Nice.
I basically, not only did I get to kind of start a podcast, I mean, everything was from scratch except for the RSS feed, but we also inherited a great amount of followers. So it's been really exciting. It's been pretty successful. I'm really happy with it, but more awesomely is I get to spend time doing this and hanging out with awesome people, which is definitely my favorite part about the game. So, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well, absolutely. We'll make sure to keep this episode quick so you can go back to hanging out with awesome people. But,
well played.
But, yeah, you were talking about how they had a lot of different hosts and stuff. And that, I think podcasting can be something really hard for people to do, especially large websites, because it takes a lot more time than people think to keep one of these things up consistently. And it's not the biggest revenue generator, as I'm sure you guys have had to deal with as well. So it's like, it's really a labor of love. And when you can find someone who can do a podcast consistently, I think it's something kind of special.
Well, it has to be, right? I mean, you really have to love what you're talking about to commit hours and hours and hours to something and dollars and dollars and dollars. So, but it's also good because when you get in there with friends, it's going to be awesome. So,
yeah. Speaking of which, though, you guys started a Patreon recently, correct?
We did. So 2 weeks ago, we started, it's patreon.com/wellmet podcast. We have all the goals and things there. This isn't a well met bumper. So it's just, you can check it all out there. We're really excited.
Yeah.
We're up to 140.
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. You guys are really cool about that. But we're up to $140 a month already. So that's awesome. $200. We get some well met merch, t-shirts and things like that. So really exciting overall.
Yeah, you guys just hit the live show. So on Sundays now, you guys are going to be streaming out your episodes.
Yes, it's Sunday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. So wherever you are, that's 8 p.m. Mountain Time over at twitch.tv/BlizzPro.
Awesome. Well, good luck on everything going smoothly for the first time. I'm sure it's a little nerve-wracking having to go in actually live now.
I'm so nervous.
But at least you got the setup for it.
So many buttons and things to keep track of. I'm just like, I love being here in the Skype call because I don't have to worry about the soundboard, anything like that. I just get to chill and talk Hearthstone.
Yeah, it's a little more relaxed. But I'm excited for the live show as a listener of the Wellmet podcast. I'm excited to see you guys go live, being able to chat with you guys on the fly.
Yeah, I hope I'll be able to spam your Twitch chat, but I'll see if I'm actually around at the time.
Bunch of kappas.
Yes, exactly.
I'll moderate you guys.
Exactly, just to, create the true Twitch experience. All right, well, jumping into the Hearthstone talk now. Before we go into our main topics, I just wanted to see, what's everyone been up to lately? Ladder, arena? We'll start with you, Andres. How's your week in Hearthstone been?
My week in Hearthstone has been rather chill, actually. I feel like I started the month really strong. That first week, I really went to town on the ladder, and I got up to rank 5. And then this week, I've been kind of just chilling out. I haven't played that much Hearthstone. I've been a little busy with real life stuff, but I managed to get up to rank 4. I've been playing a bunch of different things, and then fell back to rank 5. So I'm just sitting there. I'm just switching around. I don't know. I think this season has been the season that I played the most wide variety of decks. I played mid-range hunter, patron, handlock, the aggressive zoo. I was playing double combo druid earlier today. I don't know, aggro paladin. I've been trying a lot of stuff, just having fun.
Yeah, it's kind of been similar for me. This hasn't been like last season where I'm like, this is my season of playing Hearthstone. I'm going to dump hours and hours into it. I've just kind of been playing it casually and enjoying it. I know, crazy thought, enjoy your time playing Hearthstone, but sort of been trying. I think my biggest thing from this last season, and I'm going to go into this more in my topic, is I finally headed back to my wonderful, comfortable home of Control Warrior. Where I started,
you went back to your roots, huh?
Yes, where I started my real competitive Hearthstone career, and where I still feel best is just in the turtled armor of Control Warrior, staring at my opponent and saying, "You can't kill me, you can't kill me," and just trying to win by pure attrition. And that's been great. I've actually only dropped 2 games with that so far. I haven't played a ton, but it's definitely been more successful. My zoo was starting to get really inconsistent for me, so I really like that I kind of had something to change that up with. And yeah, that's been most of what I'm doing, aside from the game night wherein I took a break to play random decks and could not win. I think I won 1 game the entire night, and I was playing.
Jesus was not on your side?
No. But it was a really fun game night. A little bit of a smaller turnout than usual. Both you, Andres, and Billy weren't able to make it. As well as a lot of our regulars.
I made it, but you weren't there anymore.
Oh, really? You came
Yeah.
back even after I left?
Yeah, I made it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you were there for a little bit. I remember that. But yeah, it was still super fun. It was kind of just a more chill, no tournament or anything. We just played some random games in a kind of rotating format, and it was great. I had a lot of fun, even though that wasn't like an exciting tavern brawl for us, since we do
I
random
guess we've
decks
been
every
doing
week.
it for a while, yeah.
Yeah, so that wasn't crazy for us.
Although it does make
but-
it a lot easier, and like
It
what you said,
also
everyone
makes
has
it-
access to all the cards, so
It also makes it more genuine. It makes it so that like no one can be like, I totally randomized my deck. Oh yeah, and then I put Dr. Boom in it.
Yeah,
oh,
I
yeah,
suppose-
nobody can sneak in a card in
Yeah,
I
there.
suppose I
That's
should
true.
tell you the reason I finally didn't win any games is because I have been cheating all of the other weeks, and now that
Yeah,
I'm forced
exactly.
to play by the rules,
It
things
adds
didn't go
up.
so
It
well.
adds up, Brian.
Yeah, totally. John, how have you been doing in Hearthstone this last week?
I've been having a lot of fun. Not climbing, but I actually got to sit with Freshka, who was formerly captain of GGLA. He's now moved into
Oh,
Heroes.
Yeah,
Nice.
he's a really good player.
He's
Absolutely.
I love Freshka.
insane, and the way he thinks about the game is incredible. But I met him kind of early on when I was starting to work on the podcast, and I actually made a spreadsheet for the guys over at GGLA. Now that they're not kind of doing it, it's cool because I get to share with other people and demand coaching time in
Mhm.
return. So he sat down and we were learning some Patron Warrior, and my head hurts. I have like 3 calculators here to try to like make it all work, but that was pretty cool.
Yep.
I'm hitting, sitting at rank 9, but I'm not pushing ladder at all. I'm learning new decks. So probably
Yeah.
towards the end of this week, I'm going to actually sit down, do some mid-range hunter and just really make the climb. And
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with taking an off season and, using it more to learn than to push. You don't
Yeah.
have to reach
And
a high rank
I
every
was going to
season.
say that. I feel like sometimes there are two different objectives. Sometimes you're playing to learn, and sometimes you're playing to win. And the way you approach those two is very different, right? When you're playing
Yeah.
to learn, you're not afraid of just losing games as long as you're analyzing your plays and like
Yeah.
figuring out your mulligans, your strategy of the deck. And then when you're playing to win, you're usually picking the deck you're just the best at, and you're very concentrated, not dropping a single game.
Yeah.
Well-
Absolutely.
And what I'm doing too is this is my season, guys. Like, this is no joke. This is my season. I'm hitting legend this season. So-
Oh, nice.
Right? I'm going to pack it in. I literally have the next 2 weeks almost completely off. So I literally will sit at my computer and play mid-range hunter until I see that legend crystal. And I'm going to rub it in Kevin's face. And it will be beautiful.
Has Kevin reached legend before?
No, his highest rank he's ever gotten is
Ooh.
rank 2. I've gotten rank 1 on 3 different seasons, and I have not been able to
Nice.
get into legend.
Oh, wow. I never thought that I would be anywhere close to Kevin in ranks. That's somewhat heartening.
gives you a little hope, Brian.
Exactly. I feel it's still a race between me and Billy on who's going to be the second legend co-host of this podcast.
I don't know. I feel like I need to
well-
make it back up there.
Well, for me this week.
Yeah, Billy, I had a question for you this week, and that question is, what happened? What? You were doing so well.
I don't know what happened. I am 2 ranks lower than I was last week, so that should give you some indication of what happened.
Was it Miracle Warrior again?
Okay, so it wasn't Miracle Warrior. It wasn't quite that bad. But
Okay.
I feel like I'm kind of similar to this week's Tavern Bro. I'm kind of at a crossroads of what I actually want to do in Hearthstone. I've been
Right.
trying to decide whether I want to be just another player, you know what I mean, and just get to have the same objective of everyone else, get to legend. That's my goal, or whether I want to be the guy that plays. Miracle Rogue, and my goal for the season is to be underneath rank 10 with a deck that doesn't work. You know what I mean? And be able to have
Sure.
fun with it, or something like that. I don't know. I keep swapping between those two things, and it's not very healthy for my ladder ranking. But I'm happy. I played 40 games of Miracle Rogue and stayed underneath rank 10. I'm pretty, I'm pretty happy with
Nice.
how that went.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know.
And by
I'm just-
underneath, you mean like higher than 10, like a better rank
higher
than 10.
than 10.
Okay.
So like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Yeah.
Which is confusing because those numbers are actually lower than 10, but
Yeah,
that's the
but-
ranking system for you.
I'm getting the calculator back out. I can't handle this.
How has Miracle Rogue been? Like, are you playing like Thorson in it? Are you noticing it super different than it used to be?
I switched out my combo. Before I was running the Leroy thing, and then all you had
Yeah.
to do was hit Thorson and Leroy together, and that way you could Shadow Step him twice in the same turn. But what I've now done is I've switched out Leroy and Shadow Steps for Cold Bloods and Arcane Golem.
Right.
And then I also throw in a Stone Toss Boar to do the combo a little earlier if I want to. And the idea is that I faceless one of them with Cold Bloods, and it can be more damage than Leroy. But it's more consistent because it costs less mana, and then if you hit, you can hit, what's its name? Thaurissan on any of them. And I don't know, it's been going pretty well. I think I'm at like a 50-something% win rate, which is obviously not very good, but with that type of deck, it's like...
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
You're not...
Plus, you
you're
probably
not...
get people by surprise. They probably don't see the faceless combo coming.
Yeah. I don't know, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, I wonder, have you considered running Deckhand instead of Boars? I remember that being an old point of contention with Oil Rogue.
Everyone talks about that. I don't know. Boar, with the combo that I'm doing, I'm missing out on 2 damage by running Boar, but in my head, I'm missing out on infinite damage if I'm playing South Sea Deckhand if I don't have a dagger up. You know what I mean? So
this is true. It would be pretty useless to buff and faceless that thing if you don't have charge.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I feel like Boars.
Plus, you get that beast synergy.
Yeah, with Rogue. All kinds of beast synergies.
That awesome.
Plus,
awesome
let's face
beast
it, you kill them with the boar.
Exactly.
That gives you infinite style points.
That gives you
and
complete
let's be
board
honest,
control.
I have a golden boar, so clearly I have to play
Oh,
Boar.
okay. There we go.
Yeah, no way around it now.
Beast Rogue, you heard it here first on Hearthaholics.
Yeah, man, Beast Rogue, it's happening.
Like, yeah, a month from now, when all the legend players are all saying the Beast Rogue is at the top of the charts, we're gonna pull Billy back out and say, see, you know what he was doing. All right, well, let's jump into our topics of this week. For people who don't know, every week, each of us brings one topic of strategic discussion to kind of focus on what we've been interested in Hearthstone and what we've been wanting to improve on. And Andres, this week I wanted to focus on yours first. Because I thought it was a good kind of way to kick things off in terms of general Hearthstone strategy.
Sounds good.
So what have you got for us this week?
All right, so this week I was browsing through the competitive Hearthstone, the Reddit. It's a great resource if you guys are looking for guides or like up-to-date new decks. All the time, new people are posting how they got to Legend, a little mini guide of the deck that they use. They usually include like your mulligans. Some people go above and beyond and make like really awesome guides, and I want to talk about a specific one.
Cool.
Today.
A quick side note. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but do you find our competitive Hearthstone is typically like a supportive, good community? Because I know a lot of people don't like our Hearthstone just because of the kind of vitriol that can come into it. Do you find competitive Hearthstone is typically pretty positive, or what's been your experience?
I
with
would
that?
say it's. I can see what you mean by that. It's a little more elitist, I guess. People in there do expect you to have a certain amount of knowledge about the game. You don't have to be an expert about it, but you usually don't see like basic questions or newbie guides in there. This is a little more for the people who are trying to get past rank 5 into Legend, or really trying to make that competitive push. People who play in tournaments, a lot of like strategy discussion. So if you're looking for maybe more of a new friendly plays, maybe this is not a place to start. But if you're like getting more into the competitive scene, it's a great resource. Yeah. I don't think it necessarily needs to be new friendly for me to enjoy it. I was just curious if like there was a lot of argument, or if it was typically like a good quality of discussion, because on this Reddit, there are just so many people who can kind of get lost in the mob mentality of the internet compared to, smaller communities. Yeah,
so
although I feel like that can happen to any Reddit, and you need
I'm
to
not
learn how to
pointing our
dig through
Hearthstone
it,
out
right?
Yeah, totally. So I should check it out sometime, because I actually haven't been on it. But yeah, so you brought us one from one specific guide you wanted to talk about here. Yeah,
this guy is his name is Reinhardt. He's a streamer. I haven't been able to catch his stream, but I have seen some of the guides that he does. He does a great job about making a very concise, very easy to read, well-organized guides. You can find them over at the Hearthstone Reddit. They're posted over there right now. And we'll link a little link to this guide in the show notes or something.
Sure.
But he wrote a really cool guide. It's called reasons we suck at Hearthstone. And he gives you 7 really cool reasons that we're about to go over about why we're not that good and how we can improve our game.
Indeed. Yeah. So I'll just jump through these here. And
Sure. I was going to say before we go through them, I know that, John, you have catch his stream and you have him as a friend on your friends list. You know more about this guy?
Yeah, we're basically best friends the one time we hung out. So
there's such an instant connection.
So I've caught a couple of his guides going through, and I actually caught his stream one night. Every once in a while, and there's not a stream that I'm particularly fond of, I'll just kind of go and see if any look interesting, and came across, and what he was doing is he's just like a very well thought out player, but he's just like a really nice guy, the kind of guy you kind of want to just get to know. And he was just doing free coaching on his stream. And I was like, holy crap, this is really cool. So I kind of hung out, watched, and he was explaining these in-depth thoughts and turn processes and things like that. And it was really interesting. So I added him, reached out, got a little coaching done, and it was awesome. So he's really cool. He's got, great guides. I think he does a great job writing them. They're nice and minimalistic. They're not hugely like overcomplicated. Like they're to the point. They're like, I would almost call them cheat sheets versus guides.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Notes for a guide. Yeah, totally.
So yeah, he's really great. I can't say any bad thing about him. He does awesome work.
Yeah. So if you want to check him out, that is twitch.tv/ReinhardtHS, which is ReinHardt_HS. And yeah, that'll totally be in the show notes as well. But yeah, so let's go ahead and run through these 7 reasons we sometimes suck at Hearthstone. I'm sure I'm guilty of many of these, and we'll see.
I think we'll
do that test. We'll do the test of how many of these completely apply to how we play. His little motto here seems to be check your ego, then check your win rate, which I kind of want to be the motto of our podcast, but I can't take it now. So
can't plagiarize anymore, but good motto.
Yeah. So his first point here is you're allergic to net decking. And at first when I read that, I thought he's like, I should stop net decking. That doesn't seem like good advice. But then I realized he actually meant the opposite to it, which is you shouldn't stop yourself from net decking because you want to have your own original deck. Because like he says, if there are 30 million ladder players playing something and honing it and perfecting it, it's probably going to be a good deck to understand in addition to being able to understand the decks that other people are playing out there. And I thought that was a good point. It's also a point that we had a discussion on and went pretty in depth on, I think an episode or 2 back. So yeah, I read that and I'm like, okay, I'm already on the same page with this guy. I agree with that point. And then his second point was 2, you don't have the cards you need. And this was an interesting point I hadn't necessarily heard before. Which is if you look at a lot of decks, you see a lot of people asking, what's the substitution for this legendary? What's the substitution for this epic? How can I substitute these cards?
Can I say I hate it when people do that? That frustrates me. I hate that. There is, it's very rare that a substitution is actually good. Like, a substitution is only good for, tech cards. But when you're saying, oh, what's my substitution for Tyrion? It's like, Tyrion is your substitution for Tyrion. That's why Tyrion's in the deck.
Bolvar Dragon is a great substitution for Tyrion.
I agree with that. Even for the amount of cards that Hearthstone has, they've done a really good job of not keeping them homogenous, right? They're all relatively unique to the point where it's hard to find an exact substitute of another card.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I was first playing Control Warrior. I played it without Grommash for a really long time, and it's like, it's not a card you can just necessarily substitute for.
And you can, but the thing is, there's a very specific reason why they run Grommash in there, right?
But as someone who only got Sylvanas maybe a month ago, I was substituting a lot, and I hadn't actually really heard this opinion before that he had, which is the idea that if you need to be substituting, just don't play that deck and go find a deck that you don't have to substitute for. Because he thinks that the cards are often for a deck, they're imperative to the strategy of the deck overall, and you're better off playing a deck you can fully play and use the strategies of rather than playing a subpar deck.
I would say the only exception to that rule might be maybe tech cards.
Yeah, like Billy said.
Yeah, that's a little more lenient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you guys.
So,
and
go ahead, John.
I
I just wanted to say though, if you do need a substitute for Dr. Boom, War Golem plus 2 Wisps works really well. So
this is true. This is
Don't
true.
say-
and you're
don't
guaranteed
say
card
never.
advantage.
So you need
Just-
to take
just
out 3 deck slots for this. But
And see,
work,
people-
because you get a
Just make sure that you
7/7
play
and
them
2/1
at the
ones.
same time. If you don't play at the
People-
same time, it doesn't
that's
work.
true.
And
Yeah,
people like
nah.
to say it's not as good, but if you think about it, think of all the things it combos with that Dr. Boom doesn't. You've got a better, what's his name? The rogue legendary that comes out. Edwin Van Cleef. That's better with this combo. You get a better hobgoblin value.
Exactly.
So, there are a lot of reasons to be playing
No,
this instead.
no more
So there we go.
RNG with Hobgoblin, War Golem, Double Golden Wisp. I mean, we solved it.
Exactly. Yep. All right. There's a new deck you need to be taking to the ladder, Billy, with your new philosophy.
Nope, not happening.
All right. So point number 3 is one that I like a lot and tend to trumpet, which is we misplay a lot. And this is this idea that no matter how good you think you are making a lot of mistakes when you're playing. And you have to keep a very close eye on what you're playing and also look back and review your matches in hindsight. The one question I had about this is what do you think he means by like looking back at your matches? Like, do you think he just means write down detailed notes of them, like a kind of replay system, like
I
Deck
think
Tracker
it
has?
just depends on your method, right? Like, yeah, you can do like a deck tracker. I think we've mentioned in the past
I will
where
say,
if
hold
you're in
on.
a situation, I was gonna say when you're in a situation where there's a very intricate play, just screenshot it and just go back to it later and just go through it with time, because sometimes you don't have enough time with just what you get given in your turn.
That's a good point. What were
You
you
can also
saying?
record them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I was just gonna say a lot of things that a player like this might consider a misplay is like, I could have played this and it was good against his I don't know, insert card here. It was good against his Dr. Boom, but instead of Dr. Boom, he had Druid of the Claw. So it was a mistake to play this because I could have played that. So like a lot of things that he's talking about that he might be considering misplays are just because he had one card rather than another card. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
it's not like, oops, I fireballed my face. I should stop playing on iPad.
It's like you played around a different card than the card that he actually had. You know what I mean?
It's
So
that idea of playing with probabilities. And if you look back on it, it's like, there was maybe a higher probability that he had Druid of the Claw than Dr. Boom. So I should have been playing around to that more.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
that's a good
I agree
point.
with what you're saying. There's like levels of misplays, right? There's like
Totally.
very blatantly obvious misplays, and then there's like more like high level misplays where it's all about did you make the right read on your opponent? Did you calculate the right percentage of him having this card over the other? And did you make the right risk? I guess.
And I think,
So, John, go ahead.
I think one thing that I really take away from this one, so I snap a lot of screenshots, and I have a group of like 4 or 5 friends who are pretty all high legend. I tag along. I'm a leech, but I'll send them, I'll send them these screenshots and be like, what do you think the right play is here? And stuff too. So sometimes just getting more eyes on it helps you realize.
Yeah, like a peer review.
Yeah, exactly. Because even then, like I feel like, I'll look at this 100 times and still not see a different play. But having somebody else take a look and see is a huge part, I think, into what at least personally has helped me get better at the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
I
really
agree
good
with that.
point. And
A
I think
first
that's something.
perspective, especially from like a really good player, can be really good on your gameplay.
I think that's something that, Andres, it's been really helpful. Like when you've watched my stream before, or my spectator mode, and you watch me play, like that's kind of the same effect I get, getting that alternate perspective from someone who's played more of the game and knows more about it than me. But I hadn't considered taking a screenshot and sending it to people after the fact. And I really like that idea. The idea I like even more is sending it to them while I'm playing and like, here's a screenshot. You have 45 seconds. Tell me what should I do? But that might not be as feasible. But going back to the tracking thing, John, on Well Met, you mentioned writing physically the games you've been playing.
Yes.
Kind of the win-loss ratio. I've been starting to do that as well. What was kind of your thinking behind that? And how's that been working for you?
So
Interesting.
the thinking behind this, actually, we did an interview with Fake and Mirari from My Insanity. It was like our first big interview, and I had sweaty palms the whole time. I was so nerve-wracking. And so, but one thing that I believe it was Mirari said is he goes, the Hearthstone trackers and things like that, they're really great when you're a good player or you're not that interested or you just want to see big overall stats. Now, I'm a stats major. I'm getting my master's degree in statistics, so I can appreciate what he's saying. But he goes, you'd be surprised at when you have a game automatically record things for you or a program that while it's very efficient and it makes it easy and it looks good, you kind of forget sometimes, what you might have got crushed by Face Hunter. And so you're like, man, I'm losing to Face Hunter so much. And you throw in a Kezan Mystic or Ascension Shield Master when you actually look at your physically written down games, you see that, oh yeah, you know what? I haven't. It also gives you time to cool down, I think, in between games. So you're not just Q, lose. You like Q, lose, breathe. And I have a really nice fountain pen. So I write really slow and try to make it neat, just so I'm like super zen in all of this. Like I try to channel my inner Strife Crow when I'm playing just to make it work.
I always channel my inner Kalinto and just start smiling. That's my strategy, but
I heard you say that on Well Met, but I feel like it would have the opposite effect on me because I don't know, if I lose to a Face Hunter and I don't know, we always use that example, but I don't really get too salty about losing to Face Hunter. It's like whatever. But if I lose a match and it was one that I'm going to get salty over, because if it's something that I'm writing down physically, I feel like because I'm alone, I could just be like, maybe I didn't lose that match. Maybe I don't need to write this one down. Maybe I just queue up because I think that loss was unfair, so I shouldn't.
You're just lying to yourself, Billy.
Yeah,
but
right?
you can.
But
so you write down moral victory. That was
moral victory. I won because he was a scumbag. No, but what I'm saying is that's one advantage of the digital thing. It forces
it keeps you honest.
Yeah, it keeps you honest.
Although
that's a fair point.
Hearthstone Tracker does have a button where it says where it allows you to change it. It pops up right in the corner. I hit that button all the time. I'm the worst with it. I'm like, yeah, I deserve that win.
Nice.
I don't use that program, so I didn't know about that. But
if you're about to lose, you just pull out your Ethernet cable and say, "Whoops, not my fault."
DC, that goes in the win column.
Oh, that's another thing that bombed my rank. I was at rank 5, and I was having internet issues, and I was complaining about it on Twitter from last Friday to this Monday.
Yeah.
And I lost, according to my stat tracker thing, I lost, let me pull it up real quick, my bad. 15 games to early disconnects.
I think I was watching you stream once and you just disappeared. I was in the middle of a game. I was wondering if that was a disconnect.
I was trying to stream through internet issues. That was a mistake.
Yikes.
But it's whatever. I've been having issues with them all week. Yeah.
And
something else, speaking of the...
It might have been that podcast interdimensional box that we sometimes get stuck in.
Twilight podcast zone.
Careful, you might show up on Well Met just randomly.
It was in the middle of talking, and then Billy just appears and says, "Miracle Warrior." And you're like, "Wait, what? No. What are you doing here?"
Kevin would be angry. He'd be like, "What?"
Yeah, Kevin would be very angry. One last point I have for this, when we were talking about the deck tracker, something I've started doing is you can put a setting where it prompts you when you finish a match. It just pops up a dialog box and has you write notes for the match. Like over Hearthstone.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And that's really nice because it gets me to write in, what the actual match was beyond Hunter. You can say it was like Face Hunter, and then you can write either why you won or why you lost. Like, oh, he disconnected, that's why I won. Or, he had a really weird deck that wasn't in the meta, and so I just won by this, or it was a close game, or I lost because I made this mistake. So even if you're using a digital tracker, if you can just put that little bit of customization you have to do for each game, it helps you remember them more and be able to look back with more detail.
And something I didn't say
if I lost to a non-meta deck, I'd be upset and I wouldn't count it as a loss. Like, I lost to an Inner Fire Priest recently on ladder. I'm like, I shouldn't count this as a loss. Like, I'm never going to verse this again.
Yeah,
no, it totally doesn't count. It totally doesn't count.
You're playing Miracle Rogue.
No.
There's still a chance you're going to run into them in the ladder.
To be fair, I wasn't playing a Miracle Rogue at the time. This is when I was taking the ladder seriously. Okay. But what I'm saying is, when you're looking at like a stat tracking thing, in my head, it's actually better to not track a win like that, a loss like that, because you're seeing your statistics versus what you're running into, and you're never going to run into that again. Like, I mean, you could, but you're very rarely going to run into that again. You understand what I mean?
I get your point. Yeah, especially if you are using one of those stat trackers, it does not differentiate that priest from typical priest, and so it looks like, man, I'm great against priest, and you haven't actually been facing real priest yet. So I have
a spreadsheet for that, by the way, if you want one. It's got totally everything, cool. Honestly.
Send it over. I'll throw it in the show notes.
I'll be interested in looking at that. Yeah.
All right. So point number 4 is we concede too early. And I am guilty of this one. And a few times that I haven't been guilty of it, I have done incredibly well. I've actually won some games for it. I don't think I'm bad about it, but there have been games that I've conceded before the end. And this is this idea that, once you just think it's over or say, well, there's nothing I can draw, or you just don't want to give your opponent the satisfaction of being able to kill you himself, you just concede. And the point here is don't do that. You never know what could happen. He could disconnect, he could rope, he could misplay, you could draw something you forgot about. There could be some type of interaction that you can't think of.
That is very, very true. And I think this is a really good point. Not always, like, once you get into a very rough spot in the game, chances are you're going to lose. But he's very right in the point that he's making where I can't count how many times I think I've lost a game on turn 4 or 5 when my opponent has a huge play and I'm like, there's no way I can come back from this. Yeah. But down the line, maybe they misplay and they suddenly played into my Hellfire or my freezing trap or something like that, to the point where they fall behind quite a bit and I'm able to come back and then snag the win out of the blue. So these things do happen all the time. Also, even games that you think you have lost, for example, with Hunter or something, you're like, there's no way I'm going to win this game. I'm dead next turn. But you sometimes can bluff maybe that you have an explosive trap or something, and your opponent is really low on life, and you might be able to make him think that, oh, I can't win here, and they might be the ones who concede.
Or the thing of just like holding a spell, targeting him. It's like quick shot and you hope he thinks it's kill command, and just hold it there for 10 seconds and hope he concedes.
Well, we actually had the same thing happen, though. If you guys got to watch any of the Archon Team League, I believe Strife Girl was playing, and he was playing against Mage, and it was like, I think they brought like a tempo mage or something just really weird off the wall. And so he assumed that it was Mirror Entity. So he's like, dang it, I lost. There's no way I can do it. And he ended up playing the turn through anyway, and it ended up being like a counter spell or something, and ended up winning the match because of it. Where normally, like most people are like, you should just, I think Chalky even was like, you should just, concede, because they couldn't see the secret because of the spectator mode bug stuff. And so, I mean, you got to run it through. Plus, it's good for your mana utilization. So,
yeah. I think it goes to the point of your judgment is pretty bad when you're angry about losing. And once you're like sure you lost, that's when you're like going to have the worst judgment about whether you've actually lost or not. Like, it's kind of like going on tilt in the middle of a game. So you can't necessarily trust that initial voice that's just like, I lost, this is frustrating, just get me to the next game. You should probably, give it that second thought.
I think the closest thing that I've had to this is that I kind of missed lethal because I could have made my opponent draw into fatigue by attacking his Acolyte. So I conceded, and then someone pointed it out to me on stream, and I'm like, oh, whoops, mistakes were made. I had lethal.
Yeah, I saw a similar play with
Sometimes when you give up too early, then you don't give yourself the chance.
But in my head, that wasn't
finding
even
those
giving
plays.
up. In my head, that wasn't even giving up early. That was just missing lethal. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have, if I had played out that turn, I would have missed lethal anyway, because I wouldn't have noticed.
True. And I also just like not conceding because, it's fun to play out the game and see what happens, and not just say, oh, I lost. I'm not going to let the person play out their combo. Like, if they have a fun combo to play out, just let them do it.
That's the other thing I was going to say. Even if you're going to lose, if there's no way you're going to win, and you definitely lose that game, just playing it till the end might at least give you a chance to reflect back on it and just think like, okay, what could I have done differently? You can maybe see what your opponent had in his hand and what you should have been playing around.
Yeah, especially in tournaments, never concede early.
Yeah, especially in a tournament, information is everything, and you really want to see as many cards from your opponent's deck as possible.
Who knows what kind of creative BM they might have, and that's always fun. So
yeah, true.
All right. Point number 5. This is pretty similar. We're tilting. And this is something we've definitely talked about before on the show. Reinhardt says, quote, "It's a phrase that finds its roots in poker and it refers to the downward slope in playing ability brought on by losses and negative variance," end quote. That's a pretty good description of tilt. Yeah, that's what we're all talking about. It's just getting out that angry streak and then playing worse because of it. He doesn't have something too crazy or new to say here. It's just the idea of taking a break once you start to lose consecutively or even lose at all and recentering yourself.
That's a philosophy I didn't agree with.
And really?
Alright, Hearthstone's a fun game. I don't want to stop playing, ever.
As someone, but you've lost so many ranks. So if you're talking about competitively, you were like the case study of why this is a good thing to do.
No, yeah, but I'm going to enjoy the game if I continue to play it.
Okay. Now that's a good point. If you just want to keep playing Hearthstone, then you don't necessarily need to listen to this if you're not being angry and not having fun. But if you want to work competitively on your rank, this is probably good advice.
Well, it's a mindset, right? So what we're talking about here is it's not that, some people, Billy enjoys losing. You heard it here first. He enjoys what it's that feeling of seeing 13, 14, 15. But I actually, Strife Crow about 3 weeks ago, he was on a stream and he was playing, man, I can't remember who it was. He was playing Perfect Storm, a pretty well-known player. They're in the legend rank, and Perfect Storm was just BMing him the whole time, and Strife Crow lost, and he was getting BM'd.
He's actually known for BMing, right? That's what he does.
He is. And so he's BMing, and Strife Crow's just like plays through the whole game, even though he could have conceded early, and he lost, and goes back to re-queue and queues back again, and gets Perfect Storm again. And so he's like, well... so the whole chat is like, BM him, rip him, because he starts winning. He's like, BM him. He goes, why would I BM the AI? And everyone's like, what? He goes,
I like that.
My
like
mindset is just, you're playing a computer. This is a computer. This isn't another person. You're playing a computer, making the most optimal plays that you can. And I love it. It's totally changed the way I kind of
it's
tried
like the
to...
ultimate Zen master.
Yeah, the panda.
No tilt.
Right? Just
I guess the only point I differentiate on is you don't BM computers? I love doing that.
Well, that's the thing too, right? When I play Kel'Thuzad and Naxxramas, like, I'm sorry.
It's like the one time I feel good to BM.
Yeah, but I mean,
but no, I totally agree with the theory.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like he goes, I literally think of my opponent as a computer that I may know outside of the game. So like he might know Zalay is going to play whatever, Patron Warrior or whatever, and he might know how he plays it. But other than that, for me, I just
treat it as rating. Treat it as rating and like, well, or something. Oh, we're versing stock. I need to do this. You know what I mean? But I'm still versing an AI.
Yeah.
So like,
I should watch more Strife Crow.
Yeah.
That's something I've enjoyed about Kalento is he always seems to keep his cool even when losing.
The best players keep their emotions in check, right? Because getting angry or frustrated is only going to make you play worse. And they know this, and they know that is a disadvantage. So they try to avoid tilting at all costs.
True. But that doesn't always make the most entertaining stream, which is why some people go for the other way.
People do like drama.
All right. So we've got point number 6. It's Face Hunter, not Race Hunter. I just like that because it rhymes. That's funny. But beyond that, he's basically saying, don't play out more of your turn timer. Like, don't just play something, snap play it, and go on. You've got 70, 75 seconds. You should use a good portion of that through your turns, even if you don't necessarily think that's essential, and think about things. So I begin to think if it's actually a life coach writing this article and using Reinhardt as a... as an alias, but yes, he kind of exemplifies this idea, which is think about your plays, and he's an excellent player, so it gives some credence to it. And I think it's a good point. This is another thing that I'm probably more guilty of than most. I can assume I have an obvious play more often than that's probably actually the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with him that sometimes in Hearthstone there are plays that seem very obvious, right? Like if you go into turn 4 and you have a piloted shredder in your hand, it just seems so obvious to just drop it down. But once you really start thinking about the game, and once you start really to think about what your opponent might play the next turn, how your board state might look the next turn, and if you take your time to consider all of these different options, you find yourself making sometimes unusual plays that might seem not so obvious, but put you in a better spot in the long run. And I think that's what he refers to in this point. Just don't go for the obvious play. Really take your time. Sometimes the obvious play is the right one, but at least consider the other options.
Yep, I totally agree. It's something that I think is part of the being able to predict multiple turns in advance, which I think is one of the more difficult skills in Hearthstone to learn. It's also something that really includes analyzing your opponent's play, which I think is also one of the more difficult things in Hearthstone to do, because suddenly the turn doesn't just become, what is the best thing I can do on this turn given the current board state? You're having to think, what's the best thing 5 turns from now if he plays that card, and that card?
Yeah.
So it is that kind of next level of play that really, because if you're just playing on the first level of play, which is, what's the best thing for this board state, it doesn't necessarily take that much time to figure that out. There can be some subtlety to it, but that alone is often pretty obvious, which is why I think a lot of people can fall into that trap of saying, I know the best play here. It's this, obviously. And they're not really thinking to those next levels and the level beyond that.
Yep, exactly. I couldn't have said it better.
All right. So speaking of not saying things better, we've got point 7. And I love this point because this is just my jam, which is you're not playing Hearthstone. And that's the idea of, to quote Reinhardt, quote, turn off the TV, close Twitch and Netflix, at least minimize Reddit, end quote.
Nope. I disagree.
Concentrate on Hearthstone. Don't multitask the whole time while playing the game. And I love that.
Nope. It's not how you play Hearthstone. You play Hearthstone with Netflix up at all times.
And this is kind of just what I do in a lot of things, is I found I was multitasking way too much for a while, at least for my own personal taste. And I was getting a lot more out of things when I actually focused on one thing at a time and appreciated that thing and then moved on to the next thing rather than doing like 10 different things. And Hearthstone, especially something you're doing competitively, I found that's one of the most essential things to do. And I'm really happy he addressed that.
I have 3 computer monitors and a television. Are you really telling me that I need to focus on the game? I don't know.
You also, I'm going to guess, have a tablet and a phone.
Yeah, and now a watch. I think they're going to get Hearthstone on there pretty soon, so that'll be great.
But yeah,
that's awesome.
Is this anything? Have you guys had any trouble with this? Is this something you guys agree with?
I definitely agree with this in the point that if you're just having fun with Hearthstone and you're just kicking it back in an afternoon, like, it's not that important, right? Like, if you're just going to Tavern Brawl and enjoying yourself, like, have at it, put on some Netflix, catch up on your latest show. But if you're really trying to climb up in the ranks, you need to be paying attention. You want to be paying attention at your opponent's mulligan. You want to be paying attention in the order that he's playing cards. You want to be paying attention if he's missing maybe like key drops in certain turns to make, the right reads. And to do that, you just can't be watching Netflix, right? You're just going to miss all that.
No, you totally can. So, like, in my head, as long as you're not focusing on what you're watching, like, throw on something like, I don't know, something that's comical rather than, like, an in-depth story. Like, you can throw on, if you're a Family Guy fan, throw on Family Guy. It's something that you can laugh at, but you can still pay attention to the game. It's not something you need to be paying attention to the story or anything like that. Like, that's what I do when I play Hearthstone. I don't watch something that's like really story driven. I watch something that I'll laugh at once in a while, or that I get thrown. I guess this
this would partially play into just my style of media in general. I do not like passive media. I never like just having the TV on or having Netflix on. If I'm watching a movie or watching a TV show, I am watching that movie or TV show. So at some point, this is a preference thing and just how you consume media in general. It's one reason I get through TV shows so darn slow, Billy.
Yeah, this is how you consume incorrectly. You need to multitask better.
Well, I mean,
so yeah, go ahead.
It does hit like an important thing, right? Like some people, for me, I love multitasking, but when I do it, I never do any of those singular things as good as I can. My brother, on the other hand, where dude, he's just tunnel focused. Like when he needs to be focused somewhere, you can have a million things going around. He likes to have like weird music playing in the background or TV shows like Billy.
Music I'm cool with.
But he likes to have those things and it doesn't affect him at all. I think this is more of like a really good, like as a general rule for most people, we are not meant to, at least in a focusing game like this. There's a reason why chess players don't play and play chess while they have Netflix going off on the side.
That would be really hard
But
to do, yeah.
to the point,
Chess is a bit different because chess can have like 10-hour turns if you're not playing like fast chess. So like I don't know, it's
the same principle though. I think absolutely. But yeah, that is a good point. It is a mindset thing, and also like you said, Andres, it's a play style thing. It depends what you're wanting to get out of the game. I guess my other point is just like there's a lot to enjoy in Hearthstone, and I think focusing on it solely could also just, for a lot of people, maybe not you, Billy. I mean, it's all up to personal taste at some point, but I think for a lot of people, you'll find more enjoyment out of the game if you really focus on it rather than just kind of doing it as one of a dozen different things you're doing. And I think it's well designed enough and in depth enough to deserve that kind of sole attention for a while.
Why do the two need to be mutually exclusive? Why can't I be focused on the game while also having like Netflix on in the background?
Because I just don't think that's how brains work.
I don't know. Yeah,
like,
you're
I think,
a superhuman.
I think we assume we're better at
go for
multitasking than we actually are, but I'm not. I know even less about psychology than I know about Hearthstone, but that's just that's what I've understood.
I feel like my difference in play, as long as, like I said, it's nothing story driven, I feel like there's very little difference in play for me in comparison to when I'm watching Netflix and when I'm not watching Netflix.
Gotcha. And maybe so. We should do stat tracking.
It's not an absolute statistic. I can tell you that already. So Billy very well may likely be, but I mean,
he might be the outlier. Yeah.
Like, do you guys remember? Did you guys ever do in like second and third grade where you do like time test, right? And at one point in my school, they basically wanted to show a bunch of things. So they talked about a statistic where they basically had two people do a time test. One had a movie going, one had classical music going. And the people with classical music had like 10 points higher. So, I mean, there is validity to it overall in general, but it doesn't mean that there weren't people watching a movie who didn't score higher or better than those people, listening to classic.
Totally.
But to the point, I mean,
I guess it depends for the individual.
Exactly.
I guess it's different for everyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of variance
for
here.
Objectivity.
Yeah, but just like Hearthstone, it's variance in statistics, so it's never going to be a known thing. You're just
I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to play 20. I'm going to play
can.
20 games with the same deck, watching Netflix, and 20 games without, and I'll let you know how I do.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Our own professional scientific experimentation.
We will run our own tests. We will prove this ourselves.
As a statistician, I just threw up a little bit at your 20 game sample size.
Hey, the sample size of Billy is all you ever need. By the way, 100% of people live in Australia.
100%.
100% of the important people.
Exactly. All right. So those are the 7 points. Again, go check out Reinhardt. You can see this article in the show notes or check out his stream at Reinhardt_HS at twitch.tv. So we can go ahead and move on here to my topic because I like my topic this week. And it's related to what I've been doing recently, which is going back to Control Warrior. And that got me thinking about why I like Control Warrior and why I like that play style in general. And it's very much a control play style. It's very much a slow play style. And I just felt so comfortable even coming from stuff like mid-range with Zulok or combo with what's it called? Patron Warrior. I should be able to remember that. So I was curious what all your guys' favorite playstyles are and just why that is. So Andres, go ahead and take the floor.
Sure. I would say my preferred playstyle is definitely leaning on the aggressive side. I like being the person who is kind of like setting the pace of the match. I'm a sucker for like mid-range decks that can have very powerful plays around like turn 4 to 6. That can put up like really early aggression against like slow decks and stuff like that. I can hold back aggro, but then can also have a solid mid game. Like I really like the mid-range hunter playstyle, the mid-range paladin. I like that demon Zulok with Mal'Ganis and the Void Colors. Decks that are not necessarily on the passive side, but are kind of like developing their board and will take over if the other opponent doesn't do anything about it. But then also have a few comeback mechanics, right? They're not all in like Face Hunter or the aggressive Zoo, where if your board gets wiped, then you're selling it in a very precarious situation.
But it's also not like, control priest or warrior where you're kind of relying on using.
Yeah, you're not trying to prolong the game. You're definitely trying to close out the game. But you can how do I say this? Like, you have sustain. You can last a good chunk of turns.
Yeah, I really enjoy mid-range style for sure. What about you, John? Is there any you typically gravitate towards?
So I'm all about mid-range. I freaking love mid-range. I love the fact that based on who you're playing, you can tune your style a little bit, right? You can play a little bit more aggressively. You can play more control-y. Like, mid-range druid is like my quintessential way to be like mid-rangey. Like, I love sitting with a shade of Naxxramas against handlock and having it going up to 10, 11, 12, and all of a sudden, boom, you combo it and you do 30 damage in one turn. Like, I love, like, oh, I can wait like that. And then at Face Hunter, you keep your shade, you keep your Keeper of the Grove, and then you knock out his Knife Juggler with the Keeper of the Grove and, take over board control. And I've killed Face Hunters on turn 6 and turn 7 before with mid-range. Like, I love that. I love that you have to be, like, the mindset you have to be in is it's like, I'm not trying to achieve anything. I'm just trying to exploit the weaknesses of the decks that I'm about to play, or just keep up really great tempo. So I'm all about mid-range. Aggro, it stresses me out, but I think part of it just because it gets such a bad rap. It's like, I'm afraid to play Face Hunter. Like, I'm legitimately afraid. Like, I close my drapes.
Will talk bad about you.
I close my drapes. I turn off my static IP, all that kind of stuff. I log onto my friend's laptop to play it, and
you go on the Oceanic servers. You're just
I'm super afraid of it. Zoo, I don't understand, and then like Control, it's just takes too long for me. I feel like I would really like it if I ever got to like Legend, where I could actually feel good about playing 20-minute games, but I just don't feel that. So I'm all about mid-range.
I agree with you that when I was laddering seriously, that's why I switched to mid-range, is because it was the closest thing I could get to that feel of control while also getting a lot of games in.
Yeah.
That said, going back to control, I'm reminded that I was making a compromise. Like, in terms of just actual having fun with the game, control is the most fun for me. I think really similar to what you said, John, which is instead of just trying to get my own thing done, I'm watching my opponent and reacting and kind of using their deck against them. And it's just so fun to have the answers and watch what they're doing and look like I'm behind and then come out ahead, rather than, with aggro or something, just kind of hoping all of my stuff comes together and just trying to play it fast. It kind of goes back to even how I used to play card games in Magic. I would always play blue and always play counter spells and things that would allow me to kind of control the game and keep card advantage rather than try to burn my opponent down quickly.
Is blue like the hated deck of Magic? Because I know Day 9 hates blue.
It's
blue
pretty annoying.
Gets a bad rep just because it stops the other person from doing a lot of the cool stuff that they want to do. They're just like, no, you can't do that.
Yep. And I love doing that.
A fun deck.
I love ruining my opponent's day, I guess.
But that's really cool. You remind me of my brother, because when we were playing a lot of Magic, he was always the kind of guy that had like a white-blue deck, all about control, like extend the game as long as possible, and then just like winning because they draw a bunch of cards, heal for a bunch, and then just countered everything you put down. I can see the appeal of that. It just, I don't know. When you are the control player and you're able to play your game, you just feel like a god. You just get to say what gets done and what doesn't get done.
I guess I like the idea that if the game is going nowhere, I am winning. Like, that's less stressful than just now I'm at 30 armor. Good luck. I'm going to win the fatigue war. And I just like that feeling rather than I'm running out of time. So what about you, Billy? I have a guess, but I'm curious what you say.
I find it interesting that on our show notes here, where your topic is, you have control, mid-range, and aggro in brackets when giving an example of playstyle.
Those were examples, yes.
You fail to mention combo.
Yes, and that was my guess for you.
Combo is my favorite playstyle. Combo anything. My favorite deck of Hearthstone's existence is Miracle Rogue, and then Freeze Mage, and then OTK Warrior. They're my three favorite decks. They obviously all have very similarities.
You enjoy playing that free Fireball Anthonitis combo deck?
Absolutely. Any deck that's based on a combo I really enjoy, just because pulling up the combo is a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I also do enjoy control. I guess like my order of deck is like combo, then control, and then mid range, and then aggro. Not that aggro is just like boring to play. I actually kind of enjoy playing aggro, but
Yeah.
aggro is like too much of a coin flip whether you win or not. It's,
Yeah, it feels like that as well to me.
Yeah, sometimes it does. You're just trying to close out the game really fast, and if you don't, well, you seem you're gonna lose.
Just by math, aggro, there are less decisions to make to win the
It's
game.
like that
than
aggro
control.
paladin deck. Like I can't. Like I tried that for like one game, and I'm like, nope, not happening because like my opening hand was abusive sergeant, blessing of might. I'm like, what am I meant to do with this? I don't under. Okay, whatever.
I think
I actually
Totally.
I like that deck a lot. Sorry, what were we gonna
no,
say?
you go. You.
I was gonna say that I just like that deck a lot, the aggro paladin.
Yeah.
But going back to the combo for a second, I was just gonna say that the cool thing about the combo decks is that those tends to be the flashiest of all.
Yeah.
When you lose to combo decks, you just feel like you got destroyed.
Combo decks stress me out like aggro decks do
I
because
get
I'm not
friend
good at.
requests after playing combo decks. Like,
Yeah.
that's my favorite thing. Like when you kill somebody and immediately you see like a recent player wants to be your friend, it's just like, yep.
Never
that was a fun game.
does the word friend look more threatening than after that.
You have an enemy request.
Yeah, they need to have that.
They should do that so you know what you're getting yourself into.
So,
Pretty much.
I wanted to add one thing though, because I think it was Kibler who was talking about this, because a lot of people like equate like an aggro deck to like a coin flip, and he actually had a really cool perspective on it. What he was kind of saying is just like, in the end, it's no more a coin flip than control or mid range. The fact is that you just know the coin that was flipped earlier, number one, or number two, it gives your opponent more opportunities to screw up as a mid-range, depending on if you think you're the better player or not. So I thought it was really interesting because it's like,
that is interesting.
Because right, I mean, in the end, Face Hunter and mid-range Druid right now, at least according to like the meta reports, have very similar overall win rates. It's like 54 or 55% or something like that. But you just kind of know very quickly, if you won or lost as a Face Hunter. As a mid-range Druid, you might not know that you lost until turn 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15. But you just you look at, I knew right away I didn't get it. So
I'm inclined to disagree with Brian Kibler, but I know he's a much smarter man than I. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume that he's right on this. I desperately want to disagree with him, but he must be right because he's a very intelligent person.
I think one way you might be able to phrase it is that there are fewer decisions made when playing aggro, but they are higher impact. So those few decisions,
I like that, just like in the sheer number, just because you play less turns. But the decisions that you make sometimes with aggro have to be very key. Yeah,
because if you make one wrong move, like you said, as mid range, if I play an implosion and enable an Unleash the Hounds, that can cost me the game. But against Control Warrior, I feel like you have a lot more opportunities to win the game against Control Warrior and a lot less opportunities to just mess things up completely. So I feel like just once aggro enters the picture, everything becomes higher stakes.
Yeah.
It's just a faster game
and
that has fewer but more
having
important
said
decisions.
That too, I would say aggro is close to one of my preferred playstyles. Like right next to the mid range, over control and combo. I don't know. I just really like being the person who's asking the questions and having the other person in the back foot. So aggro is really like right up my alley. If it wasn't just because sometimes when you lose with aggro, you just feel so I don't know how to say it. Like you couldn't do it. Like you feel defenseless or something. That's why I prefer mid range. But aggro is really cool.
Yep, totally. All right, so we're running a little low on time here, so we'll go ahead and leave that topic and move on to our last topic of the day, which is yours, Billy. So go ahead and give us an intro here.
So with this all this news coming out about the new expansion, if it is an expansion, but that's another topic. Anywho,
Sword of the Snow! Oh my gosh!
I've been interested in knowing what they could, thinking about what they could do, because last expansion we had the spare part thing, and the thing before that they focused on Death Rattle, and this time we had Dragon. I was wondering if maybe this expansion we're going to get a new keyword. Because keywords are something that interests me in the game, with Battlecry and Death Rattle obviously being the main two examples. I was wondering what you guys would like to see for a new keyword. Something that I've seen on forums that I think would be fairly interesting is a fatality mechanic, which would be whenever you kill something with this creature or this weapon, depending on what it's on, you get the effect. So if it read fatality, gain 1 health, it would kill something and then gain 1 health.
Yeah, I think that's a really neat idea.
That's kind of cool. Or like fatality, instead of dealing fatal damage to this minion, still it or something like that.
Oh my god, that's gross. But yeah, something like that.
I like that keyword though because it's very elegant, it's very bound to the minion, and it's explainable in very few words, which I think, and it's something that just doesn't exist in Hearthstone right now. To my knowledge, I can't even think of one card.
The closest thing to it is kind of Mistress of Pain.
Yeah, Mistress of Pain are the things that basically have death touch. Like if you deal any damage to something, it kills the minion. Those are a little bit similar, but those are more of changing your attack.
We have that, right? We have death touch already in the game.
That's what I'm saying. We're saying the closest thing to this mechanic existing in the game right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think that's a really interesting idea. You mentioned something like a weapon where every time you kill a minion with that weapon, you get 1 durability back on the weapon.
No, you're not meant to talk about that.
Oh, really?
No. All right, don't worry about it. Well, there you go. In my upcoming
Billy's super secret card
Spoiler.
collection that he's making.
I kind of wanted that to be like a big deal.
Brian just leaked it out.
Spoiler alert.
I was obviously most of the listeners know I've been working on a expansion set, just like a fan made thing, and one of the weapons I designed has that mechanic, but without the keyword. Wherever it would kill something, whenever it would kill something, it would gain a durability.
Yeah, I just thought that was a really neat idea. I mean, potentially way overpowered depending on what the weapon is and what the cost is. But I like the type of it. At first, you think like, what an aggressive way to play. You're killing things, but then you realize like it leads to more of a mid range and controller style of play.
It's more of I always have a consistent, insert damage number here. To be able to do to minions as long as I'm finishing them off.
Exactly. It's
kind of interesting because you can't enable something like execute unless you want to get rid of the weapon.
Or like a minion that heals itself every time it kills something. So it's this idea of like it can keep trading. It's like a trading minion. It's basically just the more it can trade, the more it'll just stay alive, which is kind of cool.
Which is kind of how you can look at, say, something like a zombie chow. Maybe like a different version of zombie chow where one costs 2/1 that got health every time it killed something. That'd even be better than zombie chow. Oh, that's gross. Anyway.
But yeah, and I don't have any specific keywords myself, but I think that this is kind of a time to introduce some new keywords. I don't think there's been one introduced yet.
I will say, I don't think it's required a new key. No. I don't think we need a new keyword right now, but I think it would be cool.
Yeah, I think the game can support that level of complexity right now. I mean, Naxxramas just doubled down on an existing keyword. I don't feel there's an existing keyword that really needs to double down on. There's so much battle cry already that I don't think they need to make a battle cry expansion.
No, I totally want a battle cry expansion.
You think so? I guess they can make more interaction with it like they did Death Rattle.
I recently retouched the Iron Juggernaut deck, the warrior deck, and I was just calling it Battle Cry Warrior, and I was running a bunch of stuff that has Battle Cry do something. So Battle Cry destroy a weapon, Battle Cry heal 3 or whatever. And the idea is that gives me more targets for my Youthful Brewmaster. I totally want more Battle Cries so that Youthful Brewmaster could become a good card. Maybe.
Gotcha. Yeah, Battle Cries are very combo-y kind of effects, so that does make sense that you would be a fan. What do you think, John? Would you want to be seeing more keywords? Do you think it's good where it is right now?
Yeah, I mean, I am no cardsmith like the great Billy, so I will make sure to preface it with that.
Word.
But I always, we talked a little bit about it on Well and Matt. I would really like to see mounts, and how I see mounts working is in World of Warcraft. If you ever play like a boss on a raid or whatever, and there's a mount, typically you kill the guy on the mount, then you have to kill the mount. So my idea kind of was, what I'd like to see is imagine like a 4 mana, and basically what it says is it's adds +2/+2 to a minion. And then when that minion dies, it essentially adds a death rattle. It says summon the 2/2 mount. So I don't know how broken it is. I have no idea how you would balance it. It's probably just an overall stupid idea.
Is this like it would be like a one-time use kind of thing? Like you have the card in your hand and you target it to a specific minion and they get +2/+2. When they die, they get the mount and you use up the card?
Yeah, so basically, like, pretend we have a Dark Iron Dwarf on the board because that just is... That's the obvious card when you think of Hearthstone is Dark Iron Dwarf. So vanilla 4 mana 4/4. Got it.
Classic.
So
classic card.
And then you have this whatever Stormwind Steed or whatever, right? And so it's a 4 mana, and when you put it on your minion, it's +2. It basically gives your Dark Iron Dwarf +2/+2, and when it dies, you have to then basically it's like a death rattle, and you have a +2/+2 mount to deal with as well. So it'd probably be casted pretty high, but sorry, was that
interesting?
Right.
I think that people have talked about a similar concept throughout the entire community.
No,
right?
that was the
Mount
first original
being in the game.
idea that I've ever had. So don't take that
Give
from
credit
me,
where it's
Billy.
due,
Don't
Billy.
take that from me.
You
can't
I'm saying
take
the
that.
idea of mounts in the game, right? And,
Oh,
and
yeah,
having
yeah.
something
After that little
similar to
reveal
that.
they did, especially.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think mounts as a concept would be very hard to make a set about. I think mounts as a concept, like having 1 or 2 cards do that is appropriate, but I don't think making it
More like the piloted shredders kind of
Yeah,
idea where they
kinda,
added 3 in.
that type of system rather than having it be like a focus or even a keyword, because something like that is very hard to balance, and it's also very hard to come up with like unique ideas for it. It's very driven in a certain direction.
I do like the idea. It's not necessarily keywords, but it's the idea of introducing a new set of cards. Oh, go ahead, Andres.
I was just going to say, I really like the idea of mounts, but then it makes me think about other stuff. Like, one thing I would love to see in Hearthstone is something kind of like in Magic, kind of like artifacts or enchantments.
Yes.
That are cards that are not necessarily creatures or spells, but they occupy a space on the board.
Here's how I think that could actually work. Instead of a space on a board, maybe they could put equipment cards in, which is like armor and tomes and stuff for your
stuff like
hero.
that could work too. I was thinking like mixed with the mount idea. It could be like, let's say a 4 mana card and you play it. It's just a mount. It doesn't do anything by itself. But once it's in play, you can use more of your resources like mana, or like some of them can be there like other resources like life or something like that. But you use that to equip it to another card, and then once you equip it, you get the bonus that you were talking about, John, like a +2/+2 or something like that. And when the minion dies, the mount stays on the board, or the equipment or the artifact, whatever, it stays on the board.
I will say, if we're getting mounts, I want mounts to just be flying for Magic, to be honest. Like, I don't want... No, I totally want that. I don't like...
I don't want taunt to be less effective.
I totally want taunt to be less effective. And you can make aggro flying cards, but they don't need to be aggro. I don't know. Flying is an interesting mechanic, and I want that over having this imaginary mount system that we've come up with here, because it seems very
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you that flying is necessary for Hearthstone at all, and the reason I'm going to say that
I wasn't saying it was necessary.
Or not necessary. I'm sorry. Don't think flying should be added into Hearthstone at all, because in Magic it's important, because in Magic you cannot target damage. If you ever want to hit the enemy hero, your opponent is allowed to block with any of his creatures he wants.
Okay, so when
effectively
I say flying,
everything
it doesn't
has taunt.
need to be it doesn't need to be a direct copy of the flying mechanic.
Right. But that's all flying is in Magic, honestly. The only other thing it would be is basically an equivalent of stealth, which is the idea that opponents can't target it with their minions. So they kind of already have a mechanic for that.
Yeah.
So I just don't think flying...
They could have...
The reason why I say flying in Hearthstone could be interesting is because they have... with the current card sets that they're doing quite a large collection of cards. So they could introduce 2 mechanics, one being something like, I don't know what the keyword would be, but maybe, I don't even know if this exists in Magic or something, but maybe like Reach, where it can
That exists in Magic.
Well,
yes.
there you go. And it can attack the flying creature, right? So it would give them a lot of ideas for cards, right? Because you can have your flying cards, and then you can have your reach cards, and then I don't know. It just seems like an interesting mechanic for Hearthstone.
Yeah, I that is bringing one of the mechanics from Magic in. That's true. It's not my favorite mechanic, because I feel like the more you add reach and flying, it turns the game more into hoping you have a counter card for what your opponent is playing. And I don't love that. I don't love that style of play in general.
It exists in the game. Like we have
it
does,
in
every deck ever.
You know, one of the
true.
mechanics in Magic that I really like, that I wish Hearthstone had, would be first strike. For people who don't know, like first strike just means that your minion attacks the other minion first. So let's say if you have a Chillwind Yeti versus another Chillwind Yeti and you attack, your Chillwind Yeti would deal his damage first, and let's say if his was damaged, it would get killed while yours wouldn't get damage.
Oh, so like first strike for Magic.
Yeah, first strike for Magic.
Yeah. That is a scary, powerful effect, but I really like
that mechanic, especially for like aggro decks where your minions might have like high attack power but very low defense. Totally. It's a good way to keep tempo and stuff like that. That'll be a cool mechanic to bring over.
Totally. All right. So before moving on to our last listener topic here, is there any last thoughts anyone have?
I have one more thing, really quick. I think you guys need to think about this for the week, so you don't even have to respond to it, because I'm gonna suck the air out of the room for a second. So we were talking about this a little bit. What do you guys think about subclasses? Now, before you guys blow up. Right now we have Shadow Priest, right? Which we have all never seen except for that one weird time in Arena. So, but imagine having like a Fury card in Warrior. It costs probably like 3 mana. And if you equip both of them, now your Warrior can dual wield a weapon or something like that. So you can equip a Fiery War Axe in one and a Death Bite in another. Or find a way to make Druid, maybe now the Druid card or the Druid hero can find a way, maybe it goes Resto. Because I've heard, we know that actual true new classes are at least, they have to be at least 12 months out based on Blizzard's development schedule or Ben Brode being a complete liar. So what if we saw subclasses? Do you guys think that we could realistically make something like Shadow, but for different classes, viable? Especially with Argent Tournament being talked about champions and heroes and what they do well, and there are so many things that make these new champions different and things like that.
I don't understand that, by the way. I don't know what this champions thing is. I'm very confused by that.
I think it's a WoW thing, and I'm kind of out of the loop on that as well, because I didn't play during this.
I think it's just what they call the heroes, the guys that go there and fight.
Right.
Everyone is a champion.
But I don't get what relevance that has to Hearthstone.
I think the reason people see that particularly having relevance is because Planeswalkers and Magic are a thing, and they're people who in the universe, they're super creature cards, and that they kind of become a secondary hero. So I think that's what people are trying to relate it to. But going back to the specialization point, I think that would be super cool. I just feel as Shadow Priest showed, having to put a card in your deck. Okay, so I think the reason it's difficult is if you have to have the card in your deck to activate the ability. Then if you build your deck around that card, you have to, or that ability in that style of play, you have to really hope you draw into it, as opposed to starting out as a Shadow Priest. And I think that's kind of the difficulty you might run into it, and why that card is so hard to play is because you have to hope to draw it, and then you have to spend tempo on playing.
Well, it's actually
and that's what I'm
sorry. It's actually because Blizzard hates Shadow Priests, though. I played a Shadow Priest in World of Warcraft, and they just hate them. We've never been to the top.
That's the other problem.
Maybe that's it. Maybe there's a way to make it, because you're right. There has to be a trade-off, though. At the same time, if you have Grim Patron Warrior and you don't get Thaurissan, it's very hard to actually make a very good move to win. There are a lot of draw dependent decks. Mid-range Druid, if you don't get your combo, ideally by turn 9, there's a very good chance that you can't stall out enough to pull it off. Or if you don't get your Moltens and Taunt in handlock. So, I totally get it. I'm completely 100% on your own page, but what if,
Actually, I'm really keen to the idea. I think it was last episode when we were talking about this, you guys asked what we would like to see added to the game. And my answer was, I would love to see a little more diversification of classes. I would love to see a Moonkin Druid where it's more spell-based. Or we were talking about, maybe a Resto Druid where it's very concentrated in healing and that sort of thing.
Here's my...
I just think that it needs more support cards, right? Like Shadow Form, for example, in Priest, by itself is kind of crappy because it puts you behind, and then the effect you get out of it is not significant enough to maybe bring you back later in the game. Plus, you lose your healing abilities, which kind of hurt the rest of the cards that you're playing.
Right.
But if you maybe had more support cards, right? Maybe cards that when it dies, you become shadow formed, or when this card comes into play, you put a shadow form card in your hand.
Well, like Akanai Soul Priest basically allows shadow form to be played more because it's giving you that ability.
If that was in the game, if we had more cards that gave you shadow form, I think you would have to change the card text for shadow form. I think you would have to say, if already, add 1 damage, you know what I mean? That way you could go beyond 3 damage, you could go to 4 damage, maybe 5 damage if you have 3 stacks of shadow form.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, you could keep pumping it up. That wouldn't be a bad thing, and that would be maybe like a scary thing, like Shadow Form Priest. You can't let him get too big in Shadow Form, or they're gonna, wreck you or something like that.
Yeah,
and that can be how they win.
Silence to play around the Death Rattle Go Shadow Form card.
But yeah, interestingly, I think as we talk about specializations, I can't say that word. It's kind of how Blizzard has been designing these classes from the beginning, I'm realizing, because if you think about Hearthstone in comparison to Magic, in Magic you can make like a green, white, black deck. But in Hearthstone, you can't make a Warrior, Priest, Druid deck. So their way around that seems to be they take Warrior and they add in cards from every specialization in WoW. You have Fury cards, you have Arms cards, you have, what's the third one? Defense or whatever cards. So you have all of those cards. Protection, there you go. You have all those 3 pools of cards in one, and then you're allowed to mix and match those as you like. You see Control Warrior, basically a Protection Warrior. You see Patron, that's more of like kind of a Fury Warrior. So I feel like that's where they're giving you this element of customization and merging how you want, which is they're taking these multiple playstyles in a class, and then they're giving you all those cards to mix and match as you like. And I think the best way to encourage those specializations, instead of putting specific specialization cards in the game and then making people build around kind of templates, they're going to, or they should, just add more viable cards for those. Like add more cards that help Shadow Priest, like you were saying, Andres, or add more cards that help other types of Druid be played. Well, and then you'll kind of see those specializations.
And there may, though, too, be, like, I like Fury Warrior as an example. Mm-hmm. Like, Shadow Priest is very unintuitive to the rest of the priest cards, for the most part. There may be 1 or 2 that aren't horrible, but they're, like, almost completely opposite. So it's kind of unintuitive. But, like, imagine 2 4-mana cost cards that you have to play, and all of a sudden you unlock dual wielding a weapon, essentially giving your hero like a Wind Fury. Like you attack one with your main hand, and then you attack one with your offhand. So you could have like Death Bite in the right, and then you have Fiery War Axe in the left. Like, and being able to
Doomhammer.
I just love that idea of having a Death Bite in one hand and a Fire War Axe in the other. Like as a patron warrior, that's kind of like your wet dream, right?
Yes, please. So I mean, and again, like, and that doesn't require.
Can I attack twice with this mechanic if I have dual wield? Do I attack twice, or do I attack once with like a combined amount of damage?
Right, you attack. It's almost like a Wind Fury, but your left hand and right hand can vary. So you always attack with your normal slot first, and then like your other slot second.
That's cool.
Now, again, like the cool thing about this, I think, is that Shadow Priest, you have to retool and add new cards. With this one, it really doesn't change. You don't have to change the deck or the pool of cards that Warrior has to make that potentially viable for someone who might want, to use it. But at the same time, like, just because Shadow Priest sucks doesn't mean subclasses won't work, right? And so I think it's something cool. But in the end, at the same time, I don't know how you'd balance it. I don't know if it's too confusing, and I don't even know if it'd be good. But it just kind of sounds like a cool idea. And it seems to kind of make sense with what Blizzard is going for, is kind of those nice little intuitive ways to integrate the World of Warcraft game and Hearthstone kind of into one. It's like, well, subclasses. And it also might help with WoW players being able to be like, well, for me, I was a Shadow Priest. I wanted Shadow Priest to work so freaking bad. And I'm still bitter towards Blizzard to this day.
What, I'll get to rank 8 with a Shadow Priest deck next season. Just
you can't climb to rank 8 and then win one game with a Shadow Priest. You know that, right?
No.
That's cheating.
Totally. This is why I'm at this crossroads. If I end up deciding I do want to play Hearthstone for purely fun, I'm going to challenge myself every season and just select a deck and play only with that deck. That would be like
I for one encourage you to go that route because I think you have more fun with it, and it lends like a really different voice than what most of the Hearthstone talk you hear. So I'm all for that if you end up going that route. I think that'd be super fun.
I'm surprised you're on board, but I'm glad you're on board.
Totally. I don't think everyone should play competitive if they don't want to. And I think that it's super fun. I've considered doing the same. So yeah, I think you'd have a blast with that.
All right. I've totally decided right now. I'm doing that this season.
Fantastic.
I won't be Shadow Priest because I don't own a Shadow form, but it will be something else.
Wait, seriously? That's weird. I think I do have a Shadow form. Actually, I have a card you don't.
I could disenchant a Golden Avenging Wrath for it, but that's not happening.
Let's not be crazy.
I think Shadow form is the epic that I've gotten the most. I think I've gotten like 15 Shadow forms.
Mine's that stupid draw shaman Murloc cards.
Oh, Farsight?
No, the Murloc one.
Draw cards.
Oh.
When Murlocs die, you draw a card. Because Murloc Shaman is totally a subclass in WoW.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that was a really interesting point, John. I'm curious to see where they go with class diversification because I think that's something they're going to be addressing one way or the other and have addressed sometimes in the past, and it's definitely one way to go about it. So we shall see. We are getting real close to that announcement. By next episode, we should be talking about whatever's coming
out next
Hearthstone.
Wednesday. Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh my god.
So yeah,
I'm so excited. I hope I don't know. It better be an expansion. Everyone's talking about how it can be other stuff, but it better be cards.
I think it's going to be an expansion, more than likely.
Yep. All right. So moving on to our listener topic. It's not really a full topic for us to go on as much as a clarification from last week's topic, where we were talking about the ideas of, cycling cards out and all of that sort of stuff, what Hearthstone is going to do as it gets more cards. And we got this email in from Jamie, who also comes to the game night. So, hello, Jamie. I played a lot of random games with you and lost a lot. So, yay. His email reads, quote, "Hello, Hearthaholics guys. Was listening to episode 14 while at work where you discussed the natural power creep of cards in a long discussion that intrigued me. The entire time the above was discussed with comparisons to Magic, I had not heard anyone mention that Magic also rotates cards via formats, which is what I really hope Hearthstone eventually does. Sure, we do not have enough cards to do any rotations now, but I was thinking at least 2 formats could be created by mid-next year. Classic, which would involve all cards, sort of how Magic's Vintage is, and Standard, which could be the last 3 sets and 3 adventures. The implications on strategy is Standard would be amazing after a 4th set and 4th adventure. Think about no longer having to deal with Mage's Firebells or Sludge Belchers. Each would end up having a new fresh counterpart to work with around in the new sets. And if you like playing the old style, go to Classic. In the end, this would end up with 2 ladders, which of course they would need to fix, but at least they have a system for it. Just some thought comparison between Magic and Hearthstone I had. Thanks for reading."
I didn't initially like what this said until I was coming up with what I wanted to say in response. And what I originally wanted to say in response is, I don't like this because I can't play with my cards.
That's not what he said.
I know, which is why I realized, wait a minute, I actually really like this because I can still play with my cards and I can totally go play with the new cards if I want to. I like this as long as it doesn't restrict me from playing my new cards in Vintage or Classic, whatever they call it. I want to play with my new cards and my old cards, and I would just never play the whatever the mode would be
Standard?
called where you can. Yeah, I would never play Standard.
Because what we talked about was we were saying, how can they rotate cards out without destroying your collection? Because as you mentioned, they can't just let you disenchant your old cards for full value because you could just build every new set as it came out with old cards. So it was that question of how can they rotate cards without just
I will
massacring
say,
your
if this
collection.
mechanic does come into the game and we have like a Classic and a Vintage set, a Classic and a Standard set, I think that you would have to, not for full value, but you would have to increase how much stuff disenchants for, just because it kind of it requires you to have the other set if you want to play Standard, because as of right now, it takes 5... How many commons? Hold on, doing math. It takes it takes disenchanting 8 commons to make another common,
right?
Which is a lot of
I'm not sure I agree with that, just because when GVG came out, that was maybe, 30, 40% of the card pool that suddenly you needed to have to play standard. And that's about the equivalent we'd get with every new set or adventure is you need, for about a third of the cards out there, you will need to buy new ones, but for 60% of it, you already have them. So I think that balance has worked.
And he's also saying the last 3 sets and last 3 adventures, which means you only have to catch up only on one set. You still have 2 of them that are standard.
Totally.
I actually quite like this. Honestly, it keeps the game fresh, and in Magic, it kind of works out all right because every new set release that rotates, you feel like a fresh new metagame, right? The whole thing changes quite a lot. You get all this infusion of new cards, and then all these other cards cycle out, which means that there's a huge shift in like the whole mechanic of the thing, and it works really well. I think he's right that Hearthstone is just not ready for this because there's just not enough cards to warrant this kind of cycle. But I think in the long term of the game, for the health of the competitive scene, I think eventually cycling cards might be the right move.
Well,
I agree. I just thought it was funny that we didn't even think of this as we were talking about Magic over and over again. This
I know,
was
right?
Magic's solution.
It seems such a logical.
But yeah, John, what were you saying?
Sorry. Oh no, all I was going to say is I've been fact checking here. So pre Naxxramas, there were 452 collectible cards. Right now, there's 681. So we've really only added 229 cards?
Yeah, it hasn't been a lot. So they're very like conservative with their expansions.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing is while you get some like real, money cards in there, right? Like you can't really be competitive without having Naxxramas because you need Sludge Belcher, you need Zombie Chows, you need a Dr. Boom from GVG, you need Lotheb, all those different things, right? So there are good cards in there, but in the end, the staples are still like, I don't know if you can ever get rid of Fireball for Mage.
So he is saying,
I think basic cards would stay forever.
Which could be the last 3 sets and 3 adventures. He's not saying 3 sets and he's not saying 2 sets and 1 adventure. He's saying 3 sets and 3 adventures. We don't even have that much expansion in the game.
Sure. But that's a good point that you make about the basic cards. I think like anything that's like standard or maybe even the original class cards could maybe be like maybe just like basic cards is a set that stays forever.
Off limits.
Yeah, Magic they do have the core set, which kind of reprints a lot of the same basic cards all over because they do agree that some basic cards are just meant to be there. And it's hard to improve on them, right? So you cannot have to have them no matter what.
I don't want Hearthstone reprints, though. Like, I don't want to have to pull Fireball in a pack, you know what I mean?
They would just leave the classic cards as they are, I would imagine.
Yeah, I know. I was just making that clear.
That is a really good point, John, that you do want to keep those originals around. I think one thing I would like to see, though, is people talk about, like, oh no, how are we ever going to balance around Mad Scientist? And this would kind of lead to them having to nerf cards less because, they know the cards are temporary and at some point they can move beyond them. And people will stop being able to rely on Sludge Belchers or Knife Jugglers. And it could just really change up the meta in ways that we haven't seen yet, like when it gets down the line.
Once again, this is a discussion that is not meant for, like, now. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, this is definitely not for the immediate future.
If we get about 200 cards a year, I'm guessing it'd be maybe 2 or 3 years down the line that we'd be doing this.
Yeah, this is for, like, the very the long-term future of Hearthstone, right?
We're visionaries.
I'm excited to see this... I'm excited to go back to this episode, like 4 years from now, when we've seen how they do limit cards and see how wrong we were.
When we're all playing Overwatch and we're like, wait, Hearthstone?
Wait a minute, Hearthstone was a game?
All right. Well, thank you, Jamie, for the email. That was a really good catch. That I was surprised none of us brought up formats in the original discussion. So.
Yeah, good thoughts. Pretty cool idea. I like it.
Absolutely. And that brings us... What, Billy?
I was just saying you totally got me excited for Overwatch. I forgot all about that. Now I want to play that game.
Yes. I often forget about it. And I'm like, that's a thing that I'm in the beta for, that I'm not actually getting in the beta for, but I'm just asking them to let me in. All right. So we'll move on to our outro here. We do have an iTunes review this week, which is awesome. We are always super happy for those. This week it comes to us from US Air General. Awesome username there. And he writes, the review deck is great Hearthstone podcast. And he writes, just wanted to say, amazing podcast! All in caps. All right, I approve. I've been listening to you guys all day at work and can't get enough. I'm a pretty casual player, have only gotten to rank 3. Wait a second. That's casual? I feel really bad all of a sudden.
That's totally not
rank 3 is the new casual, Brian.
No.
Get with it.
Let's just point something out. That's not even close to casual. Rank 5 is top like 3%, I think.
That's the cutoff. That's the cutoff for casual.
I'm going to continue
rank
with
5
your...
is the cutoff for casual.
Apparently,
if you're above rank 5, casual.
Apparently, I've never played this game before. If that's casual,
Yeah, apparently we're all newbies here. So anyway, and then he says, can't seem to get legend, but would love to hear more tips. Sure, I know how to get to legend. Anyway, keep up the good work, guys. And for the new players, listen up. These guys know what they're talking about. Good, solid advice. So thank you, U.S. Air General, for your very perceptive review of our podcast. We really appreciate it. We are, obviously, as you can see for this on iTunes, just look for Hearthaholics, and reviews are awesome. We are very thankful for each of them. I think we have like 8 or 9 now, and it's been fantastic. So anyone who likes our show, please leave us a review there. You can also email us for more listener topics like the one we had this week at hearthaholics@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at Hearthaholics, and you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, just by YouTube or Facebook, just by searching for Hearthaholics, as well as, what's that service called that I always forget on Android phones that people like to use? Stitcher. There we go. I always call it Spotify, but no, Stitcher has us as well. If you're on one of those darn Android phones. Let's see here. Yes, we are part of the Whales Are Whales network. So check out whalesorewhales.com for all the other shows with awesome people like us. We have all our actor shows there on the front page of Whales Are Whales. So go check it out. See what you like there. Also, we do a game night for the Angry Chicken that we host every Wednesday at 8 p.m. CDT. So if you want to hang out with us, play some Hearthstone, play whatever the most recent Tavern Brawl is, just chat, check us out there at the TAC subreddit, which is /r/ I believe just TAC. TAC podcast. That's right. So it's the TAC podcast subreddit, and I post there every week with the game night details, as well as I tweet out about it on this, the Hearthaholics Twitter account and my personal Twitter account. Speaking of personal Twitters, you can find me at Lord Meldor, and everything else I do is going to be up there at Whales Are Whales. Billy, where can people find you?
You can find me on a variety of different places. You can find me on Twitter at bbrawley. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/bbrawley. Yes. And you can also find me on YouTube at youtube.com/BrawleyHS.
Andres?
People can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. You can also find all of my musical work, including the intro song for this podcast, over at MassiveMusic.com. You spell that MASSEVE music. So go check it out.
You're assuming people know how to spell music.
I am assuming people know how to spell music. I hope so.
We're gonna go with that.
MOOSIK, right?
Yep.
Yeah, double O.
Okay, cool.
And John, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at KickedTripod. I'm on Twitch at twitch.tv/KickedTripod. And Well Met, you can find at twitch.tv/BlizzPro or Well Met Podcast. So we're hanging out there.
Awesome.
Basically, I'm on all 4 of those things all the time. So yeah.
Okay, so I do have a question for you. Where does Kicked Tripod come from? Does that just come from frustratingly trying to record video, or?
Yeah, I mean, no, just kidding. Well, actually, a lot of people think it's meant to be some sort of innuendo, and it's not. So don't worry about that. So basically, back in the day when I was like, I think it was 11 or 12, I asked my mom for an Xbox Live. And when you could get an Xbox then and you were creating a gamer tag, if you didn't know what to name it, you could hit a random and they make a name generator. And that was the first name that came up, and I just always stuck with it. So
that's such a cool story. I love that.
It really stuck with you, huh? Resonated with you.
Yeah, I mean, it fits, right? It's great. It's quick. It's kind of insinuates something, maybe. I'm just kidding. No, it doesn't.
It's memorable. It's like, it's 2 words, so people can like remember it. It's not some like KZI 5548. It's like, oh wait, what was that?
Oh yeah, I hate those.
Or like you make your Gmail, it would be like Jay Horstmann 2011, be like, oh, that's the year I made my email. Like, not anything like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So I thought about like doing like tripod gaming or tripod TV, but that kind of felt a little weird. So
yeah, just stick with it.
I like it. It's going to stay.
Yeah.
Forever.
All right. Plus it costs like what, $25 to change your gamer tag. So who wants to do that?
Well, not if you do it for the first time.
Oh, really? Okay. I might have been thinking of World of Warcraft changes. World of Warcraft changes are so expensive.
That's 10 card packs. So
exactly. So it's
12 or whatever it is.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, John. That was super fun.
Thanks so much for coming to the podcast. That was awesome that you came over here, keep us company today from the Twilight Zone of podcasts.
No, really. Thank you,
Hopefully you
guys.
can find your way back.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I got to admit, a lot of fun.
Yes, we may be knocking on your door here again to have you back on sometime.
Yeah, for sure. And for people who haven't checked out the Well Made podcast, please do, because he's very well produced. These guys are super professional. Their news are up to date. They deliver it super organized fashion. Definitely a great place to keep up with what's happening in the Hearthstone scene. I listen to it all the time. You guys do an awesome job.
Thanks. Oh, can I do one more little plug? Sorry.
Absolutely.
I've actually been guest hosting over at Golden Wisp.
Right.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I heard that on your Twitter.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing with my podcast life anymore. I think
you're on every Hearthstone podcast.
I think I'm like sexually confused about which podcast I want to be on. But yeah, so I mean, I know Alec really well. He's been really cool, and he just needed, basically the whole idea is like, if I don't find a co-host, we just got to go off the air and we're losing viewers. I'm like, oh, hey, I'll sit in for a few weeks while you find someone. And so
I believe what you're doing is referred to as polycasting at this point.
Yes, could be. Illegal in 38 states. But yeah, so I'm also over at Golden Wisp too, if you guys want to check it out. Or if you think that you could be a podcast host, you should email Alec. He's at goldenwispodcast@gmail.com, that he's trying to do interviews.
Nice.
Because I'm drowning in podcasts. So
there you go. If you guys are looking for a chance to be part of the podcast, now you know where to go.
Yeah, Andres, you have your out. You can
finally I can leave Hearthaholics.
Is it illegal to host two podcasts? That's my question.
No, I host like 3. I hope it's legal. Like we said, in 38 states.
If I'm not on Well Met last week and my bail hasn't been posted, then you'll know.
Fantastic. So yeah, everyone check out the Golden Wisp for your competitive Hearthstone needs. And yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode. Thank you as well, Andres, as always.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here. This is probably the longest Hearthaholics episode we've had.
Yeah, it went about an hour and a half.
No. It was needed to be.
No, this was all great. If we have stuff to talk about, and especially a good guest to share stuff with, I'm cool doing a longer episode. And Billy, thank you as well for joining us here for this Hearthaholics marathon.
Yay, Hearthaholics marathon. I gotta say, I enjoy the long episodes. That's just me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope everyone out there, you enjoyed it as well. I will leave you now with our flavor text of the week. Wham! 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 All right, we're done.
That was great. Oh, that was great. I love that.
Begin.